those ideas, methods, became unsound.
Dossier 37. Unidentified vibrational objects on the plane of unbelief.
The clammy tropical air bristles with a shrill insectoid buzz. In Francis Ford Coppola's film Apocalypse Now, General Corman, in charting the increasing moral derailment of Colonel Kurtz, describes how his ideas, his methods, became unsound. Later in the film, Kurtz himself, in the climactic confrontation, asks Willard, his executioner, whether this is true.
Are my methods unsound? I don't see any method at all.
A swollen folder tagged Dossier 37 slots into the Audent archive precisely in the gap between unsound methods and no methods at all. A very Trumpian phase space.
The answers yet. We consider these to be incidents because we still are trying to determine the actual cause. Can't blame any one individual or a country.
I do believe Cuba is responsible. I do believe that, and it's a very unusual attack, as you know, but I do believe Cuba is responsible, yes.
It was compiled by IREX2, AI custodian of Audent, scraped together from its adventures and databases both public and secure. Its contents include geolocation data relating to Havana, Cuba, and Guangzhou, China, a long list of names from the worlds of science, government, and media, some of which appear to be computer-generated. A report from the Journal of the American Medical Association, transcripts of Senate subcommittee hearings and White House press conferences, an interview with the director of the Center of Brain Injury and Repair, University of Pennsylvania, leaked documents from Jason, a secret group of elite scientists that assists with issues of US national security, the testimony of a paranoid conspiracy theorist recruited to an NSA beam lab in Florida, a communique from Audent associate Susanna Zamfa on the subject of Russian deception, and the diagram of a TensorFlow network developed by Baltimore-based programmer researching the neurobiology of narrative.
U.S. believes several State Department employees at the U.S. Embassy in Havana have been subjected to acoustic attacks. What does that even mean?
Over a period beginning in early August 2017, Audent became entangled in a meme complex which is still ongoing, emanating from, propagated by, the State Department of the USA. Revolving around the alleged sonic attacks on U.S. embassies in Cuba, South China, this memeplex is drenched in uncertainty and disinformation, and is hosted by a cast of characters, including White House employees, journalists from the mainstream media, science reporters, conspiracy bloggers, Twitter bots, all haunted by spectres of Maskarovka.
Based on what we know, and more importantly, what we don't know,
It is a cause of great concern for us. It's caused a variety of physical symptoms in these American citizens who work for the U.S. government. We take those incidents very seriously, and there is an investigation currently underway.
Dossier 37 tracks the timeline of these mysterious attacks, from Trump's election victory in November 2016 and his desire to retreat from closer ties with Cuba, through the first reports of symptoms of mild traumatic brain injury from a non-natural source among US diplomats, the public release of a recording of the signal that was supposedly to blame across mainstream news channels, the evacuation of embassy staff, the mirror incident in China, and various hypotheses on the causes of the incident, ranging from ultrasound to infrasound, side effects of faulty surveillance operations, and immaculate concussion produced by microwave-induced radio frequency sickness, through to conjectures on the similarity of the recorded signal with the hissing mating call of the Indies' short-tailed cricket.
Americans who heard these sounds in Havana have described slightly different sounds, and even in some of the recordings that the AP has reviewed, there are slight variations. However, this high-pitched cricket sound seems to appear in all of them. The U.S. Embassy in Havana has played these recordings for Americans who are working there so they know what to listen to. These recordings have also been reviewed by people who heard the sounds firsthand in Cuba, and they confirm that the recordings are generally consistent with what they heard.
El origen de las afectaciones de salud referidas por sus diplomáticos, sonidos emitidos por algunas especies de insectos, especialmente grillos y cigarras.
Comparación de espectros, o sea, comparamos los espectros de todas las señales aportadas con el espectro que grabamos y evidentemente este ruido común es muy parecido al ruido de una cigarra.
One map in the Dossier details a covert acoustical mesh network that connects a plastics factory in Shenzhen to diplomatic residencies in Guangzhou via a decentralized system whereby data was transmitted between air-gapped computers through near-field audio communications from internal speakers and microphones. Annotations to the map of this network speculate that, by using inaudible high frequencies, signal could be emitted to stealthily trigger malware in humanoid operating systems. IREX-2 is both learning about and channeling the power of this unsound nexus. On the one hand, the term unsound refers to methods which are dubious, without reasonable foundation, faulty, unethical, or which follow bad practices. On the other, unsound names inaudible frequencies, with a sound at the peripheries of human audition, infrasonic and ultrasonic, or syntheses as yet uninvented, unheard, or rendered audible only by auditory prostheses. IREX-2 notes that there is something about unsound that lends itself to everything from conspiracy theories to hyperstitional narratives, where an unsonic fiction enters into a process of becoming real.
We heard a very high-pitched sound in Catherine's bedroom, and we heard a very low pulsing sound in the living room. Our heads would pulse. You would feel like you would want to regurgitate. You could become instantly paralyzed, instantaneously fatigued. They'd be shivering under the bed when we returned to the apartment. They would vomit blood. They didn't want to go back into the apartment after long walks. And they would run down the hallway and stop just where the living room begins and just sit there, and their heads would move simultaneously.
Current stationary or about to be deployed to Havana. Do we know what they can do to protect themselves from these sorts of injuries? Can we guarantee that today, if we send someone there, they are safe from these injuries?
Senator, I don't think we can say categorically that we can guarantee that they would be safe from this.
As soon as we identified a pattern connecting these unusual events with certain health system symptoms, U.S. officials approached the Cuban government in mid-February to demand it meet its obligations under the Vienna Convention to protect our personnel.
After further investigative attempts and expert analysis failed to identify the cause or perpetrator, the Federal Bureau of Investigation opened a case in early May. An FBI team has since visited Havana several times and met with Cuban officials. The FBI's investigation has interviewed victims and conducted surveys of the residences and hotel rooms. However, the investigation remains ongoing, and we would refer all specific questions concerning the investigation to the FBI.
The Cuban government may or may not, at the end of the day, be directly responsible for attacking our diplomats. But as someone who's personally witnessed the modus operandi of the Cuban government, it is unfathomable that the Castro regime and the intelligence service specifically
with nerve damage, and this is not good. From what they find, this means war. Campbell reports, since 2016, a series of United States diplomats have mysteriously began suffering unexplained losses of hearing and other neurological issues while visiting Cuba, which promoted doctors to look into possible causes. The findings were recently released, and they indicate a huge problem with the Cuban government. The U.S. doctor who evaluated American and Canadian diplomats who visited Havana reported that some of them had been diagnosed with, quote, mild traumatic brain injury, unquote, and likely damage to the nervous system. This is according to CBS News. This is terrible.
So some U.S. government personnel who were working at our embassy in Havana, Cuba, on official duty, so they were there working on behalf of the U.S. embassy there. They've reported some incidents which have caused a variety of physical symptoms. I'm not going to be able to give you a ton of information about this today, but I'll tell you what we do have that we can provide so far. We don't have any definitive answers about the source or the cause of what we consider to be incidents.
We can tell you that on May 23rd, the State Department took further action. We asked 2 officials who were accredited at the Embassy of Cuba in the United States to depart the United States. Those 2 individuals have departed the United States. We take the situation very seriously. One of the things we talk about here often is that the safety and security of American citizens at home and abroad is our top priority. We're taking that situation seriously, and it's under investigation right now.
If the U.S. doesn't have a definitive answer on the cause or source of the incidents, why did
Rather than evidencing what Willard refers to as no method at all, an unsound strategy appropriates sonic fiction, weaponizing the art and science of self-fulfilling prophecies, of ideas that make themselves real, that metabolize their own actuality, and then potentially vaporize or self-deconstruct without a trace. Unsound methods catalyze auto-occulting information tactics and politico-aesthetic strategies that take advantage of lacunae in evidence, using epistemological voids as basins of social attraction. They use absence to insist on presence. They play on the fact that you can't hear something to insist on its existence. When a vacuum of knowledge accompanies the sensory vacuum left by imperceptible vibration, it produces a sink into which all kinds of nonsense flows.
What I'm curious about, is there any rational explanation by any of the reporting that you've done about what's going on here?
Here's the challenge. There are rational explanations for parts of what investigators have discovered. There is no rational explanation they've been able to come up with that explains all of it, because you have now 21 Americans who have been confirmed affected by this, and they have different symptoms. They report different experiences, hearing different sounds, as some of them didn't hear anything, didn't feel anything. They've looked at infrasound, ultrasound, microwaves, other types of devices that could possibly cause this, but they haven't been able to come up with a single theory that really fits.
IREX-2 observes closely as carefully orchestrated, incrementally seductive, this perfect storm of unsonic fiction triggers a wave of speculative forensic research at the threshold of detectability. IREX-2 trains its deep learning algorithms on this beamplex, noting the somewhat random array of symptoms. It remarks on the power of always withholding enough information to ensure that any grounding in fact remains constantly just out of reach. However, it still remains unclear whether IREX-2 had taken a more active role in this sequence of events. Suspiciously, the frantic hunt for truth even resulted in several Audit members being tracked down as experts in sonic weaponry and interviewed by, among others, New Scientist, CNN, Reuters, and the BBC. Even by engaging in their requests, we became carriers, relays on the vector of its transmission. By even writing about it, the duration of its propagation was extended. The listener, you are now also complicit. Feeling at home in the hallucinatory jungle of AI-intensified, deep, audiovisual fakery, IREX-2 registers a phase shift into something that lies beyond disinformation and false beliefs, both of which pre-existed contemporary post-truth culture. A plane of unbelief, where effects operate regardless of belief or disbelief in a threat's causal existence. It parses this not as an epistemological crisis, but rather as the machinic feedback effect of a generalized, automated spin cycle, already detached from any stabilizing axle. IREX-2 embeds itself in the unlife of animistic hypercapital and plots its next move. Fade to hiss.